I'd like to welcome our artists this afternoon. We have Ian, we have An-Ting, they're doing Experiment. We have Meera, we have Nick, they're doing Explore. Not together. Very different projects. So I'll let you all introduce yourselves. An-Ting and Ian, do you want to tell people a little bit about who you are and what you're up to?
Hello. Hi, I'm An-Ting, and I'm a composer, and in our project, I'm making spatial compositions, with the recordings from the underwater sound, like fish and coral, those things.
Hi, I'm Ian. I'm a creative technologist. I'm working with An-Ting on this underwater project. So we're kind of building a world in Unreal based on like the kind of experiences we have while recording the sound underwater.
Hi everyone, I'm Meera. I'm an actor and theatre maker. My project is looking into VR and immersive tools and reshape storytelling and making it more accessible to audiences.
Hi everyone, my name's Nick. I'm usually a TV and film scriptwriter, but in this instance I'm involved with collaborating to create a live, theatrical version of a J.G. Ballard work. And we're going to approach that sound first, so testing how much of the narrative you can tell through ambisonic sound and extremely low frequencies.
Great, thank you. So very diverse range of projects. You can see their projects on our website. They're all up there. Thinking back to this time last year, or thereabouts, what actually prompted you to apply for Massive Arts funding? I'll ask you, Nick.
I bumped into a friend who's a sound artist, and she's from Bristol, and she said, "Oh, I found this new pot of money, and I'm gonna apply to it." I said, "Oh, what is it?" She said, "Well, I don't know if I should tell you." "Yeah, I can't tell you. It's immersive arts." And that was it, really.
Okay, Meera?
I think I just found out about it through different artist networks. A lot of people were talking about this new funding coming about, and I think I was just really excited at the opportunity to learn and explore with these new technologies I'd always been interested in. It's like an audience member. I went to Team Labs in Tokyo. If anyone's been there, she knows about them. And I've just always been intrigued by immersive technology and performance. So that's
So for us, we've been working together for immersive arts for a few years already. So it just when seeing this game, just like, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly what we do. So for us, it's a really organic kind of just, oh, this is the available funding. We make this work. Let's try to apply.
But then we were at the beginning stage of the project. We were wondering how much to commit to it and how much to kind of develop for it. So this obviously helped us commit a lot more time and effort into it.
And what resonated for you and your practice about the funding in particular?
You mean the project or the funding resonates to our practice?
Back to your creative practice. Yeah.
It's almost 100% because we kind of partner together to do I do music and Ian does technology. So we create kind of how to use music and technology to do storytelling. So it's kind of just it's exactly what we do. But the thing about using technology Rumney is just immense possibilities. It's all sort of different thing. So when there's a dedicated funding and also kind of a people community who is really looking at that, that's really exciting.
Yeah. And on a scale of 1 to 10, can you think back how difficult was the application process? I know that there's people in this room that are thinking, oh my goodness, another application. Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really difficult and 1 being pretty super easy.
I'm going to give it a 1 because in all honesty I had access support, so that made it because I'm very diverse and applications are very daunting. But I had a look at it before because obviously you apply for the art support and I still had to prepare myself if I didn't get it, will I be able to? But I worked a lot with my access support worker and actually we found it really accessible. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely, I'd give it a 3. I think it's a really user-friendly portal.
Yeah, and the deadline for access support is actually passed now, but what we've been encouraging people to do is find someone for their own team or, work with people, reach out because people are willing to help if you need. It's quite a straightforward process, yeah. And you applied for experiment. Was that much different, do you think? Was it straightforward?
I would say, like, as an application itself, it's like compared to arts council, it's so much more user friendly, and the project directly into itself, and so I would say that it's really just as a project itself, it's good, but it's competitive. Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything. So your our project strands are quite different. They're designed to meet artists' needs where they are at the different stages in their creative practice. And you've already touched briefly on where you were at in your creative practice there. Meera and Nick, what have you been able to explore in your projects? This Explore Fund is targeted to just let you explore what you will. What have you been exploring?
Well, specifically last, we decided to, we realised we wanted to use some form of immersive sound, ambisonic sound. And through one of the guys we're collaborating with at Kent University's ICCI, he said, look, you can get these Zoom ambisonic recorders for under 200 quid. Get one. And so we did. And so that's the kind of main thrust of what we've been doing, is just working with these incredibly user-friendly, simple things that seem to have, certainly at the stage we're at, with this kind of like learning, drafting, researching process, have made fantastic results.
And Meera?
I was a complete beginner because my practice is all like live art as like a theatre maker. So yeah, I was able to explore my interest with virtual reality, but also 360 video and spatial audio. As a way of, I think just reimagining like the live performances I was making and making them accessible and also scalable. Because I found that with a lot of my live art practice, it wasn't as sustainable, especially when you're having to like buy all these materials and then you can only use it once. It's like paint, or if you're using like food or different materials. But then obviously like with Unity, which is not like user friendly, I've found, the options are like limitless and you can really scale and you can be really ambitious with your ideas. So that's what I've been looking to.
And so Ian and An-Ting, the Experiment Fund is aimed at prototypes and that stage of development before you go and spend loads of money building the real thing, having a real experimental time of things. So what have you been experimenting with?
First of all, it was getting the raw materials. So we were diving and recording sound underwater. We used one thing that the funding allowed us to do was explore how to get a sound recorder underwater to record the sound to the ambisonic side of things. And for me, An-Ting can talk about the ambisonics, but for me, I've been experimenting a lot with how to make a pipeline to generate 3D assets for the world using generative AI. So making like 3D worlds in a way that, because like it's still a small project in terms of like making a game or something, but we can like do it much quicker now and have much more freedom to kind of generate new ideas.
For me, kind of like, so in addition to record the raw material, which is going to water, we devised this ambisonic hydrophone set to record, and then really exploring about how to compose spatial sound composition and how to kind of like really apply the spatial composition in different places, just because that's still a very big nightmare now for the system and for the existing workflow. So that's mainly kind of what I'm looking at during the experiment.
Fantastic. So you've really been pushing the boundaries there. So Let's talk for a moment about immersive technologies. We touched on it, but some of our audience haven't used immersive technologies like you hadn't before, Meera. And 2 projects are very focused on the audio elements, but can you tell us a bit more about the technologies you've been using? Are they the same ones you started with, or has it that you knew something about already, or have you pushed into some other areas? Do you want to start, An-Ting?
So for my sound wise, it just there are so for spatial compositions like just I don't know how much people know about like when I'm saying spatial. So basically, when you hear the sound in general, it's like stereo, which are 2 speakers. So no matter how you kind of like compose like into electronic or just microphone, you hear from these 2 speakers. But when it's spatial, it means there will be at least like 4 speakers, which you can have like front and back sound. So, but just it sounds like it just go from 2 speakers to 4 speakers. But the whole kind of like system of how to create music with that is quite complicated, and there are all different. It's become much more complicated than stereo. I can just work in home and just to create for 2 speakers for any place, but for surround like when it's more than 2 speakers, it just become there's no rule basically, and so that's take a long time to really looking at how which software and which kind of like thing I'm going to choose to use, and how am I going to, because we are actually looking at touring performances afterwards, so just how to do it, and you will talk about the visual part.
So I mean, we've been using Unreal Engine, which is kind of it's Unreal or Unity are kind of like the 2 main software development agent like kind of packages that you can build like 3D worlds in. And with that, like I wanted to, because there's a certain way of building things in those packages that like it looks like an Unreal Engine kind of game. So I'm trying to find a way of like generating things that make it look different and are a bit more expressive. So that's mostly what I've been focusing on, is like trying to generate new assets that don't involve me like building models and things like that. And using kind of AI coding help as well to build plugins for the system. So one thing we did was build a plugin for Unreal that allows you to output spatial audio to any number of speakers. And the thing that has helped a lot with that is using ChatGPT to kind of do a lot of the coding, which could have took like months and months of practice.
It's a real process of unfolding and discovering and going, approaching problems and challenges along the way. And are there any technologies you'd like to use in the future that you've kind of touched on?
I mean, we're planning to do some VR with the project in the future, but that'll be kind of the next stage probably.
Yeah, so because our project will include like an in-person performance where you see like a 3D world with a spatial sound, but there will be also online elements which audience can join online as avatars to go into a game. So Ian is using Unreal to build the game basically, kind of like so. But this 3D world can exist on desktop, but can also exist in in VR. But there will be different applications, kind of like how we are going to deliver this game. But currently, we are only on the stage of creating this 3D world and the 3D music. And our next 3 months, we'll be looking at the prototype for the game element.
Some of it takes a long, long time, doesn't it? So patience also. And Meera, you were a complete beginner. So which technologies have you been playing with?
I was a complete beginner, so I didn't even know where to start. A lot of my application was I kind of want to figure it out, to be honest, and that's a lot of what the Explore funding is all about. Like also having the money to pay yourself to learn these things. Because obviously it's all creative, it's hard to use this thing in practice. But the big thing, a lot of the artists recommended various programs. I used Unity, to build a lot of the my digital exhibition for virtual reality. I'm lucky that like a theatre I work for, they have a lot of VR headsets. They've let me borrow one of theirs. So yeah, Unity, Pico Neo 3 Pro, if you know what this. I've heard it's quite good. And they've been the main ones, to be honest. And then like I've got like a 360 camera as well.
And you did some training with yours, didn't you? You use your money to actually go on a few training courses?
Yeah, 100%. I've done like I had that mentorship with a local company to here, I guess pretty local, NVD in Leicester. They specialise in virtual reality, but they also look at like motion capture, XR, spatial audios. They kind of cover it all. And I was fortunate to have a few mentorship sessions with them. And they're all like specialists over there, and they create some like great projects. So I'd like to look more into motion capture next.
So you're learning from people that have done a few things, but you're coming at it from a different point of view, which is
and it's I was saying to these guys that like I have used a little bit of AI to help, because I feel like at the start it's very overwhelming, especially like someone with ADHD. It's quite complicated. But there's a great resources also on like YouTube. Like so many people go into it. We were saying that like I think Unity does some like free like courses as well. So like take your time with it, because once you understand it, once you actually build it, it works, and there's no error codes. It's so rewarding. So like doing it and doing it, it's not possible because it is.
Nick, you came into this with some background in a different industry and different technical skills. But what about the technology you've been using in Explore?
Completely. No, I'm utterly ignorant of any technology. And so literally people have to explain ambisonic to me. So that's been terrific. Just getting, as I said, we're using these little ambisonic recorders that are so user-friendly. And it's very easy to start to get your head round what is going on. I have no idea how to go beyond that and to what process to use or whatever, how to process the audio. But once you, what I was looking for was just a basic understanding of how that audio is working. Very much what An-Ting was talking about, that we kind of hear in stereo. We've got two ears, obviously, but when you start surrounding yourself with speakers, obviously, you're creating a far more vivid world, and that's where obviously the immersion starts to come from. And so, yeah, very, very much the beginning of the journey, and I'm just going to keep an eye on these two and copy anything they do.
We do like the cohort to get together as much as possible. This is a great opportunity in itself. So thank you, everyone, because we've given them an excuse to meet each other in person, which is great. And on that note, I want to talk a bit about audiences, because for many artists, working with audiences in mind is not necessarily part of their practice at the moment. We're going to convince you that it should be. And so one of our key aims in the programme also is to advocate for EDI, or equity, diversity and inclusion, right from the start, not as an add-on at the end, so that we can raise the bar of best practice when thinking about audiences and all of that. It's not just about putting a wheelchair space in a theatre, it's much, much more than that. It's baked into some of your projects. So how do these technologies that you're using help engage your audiences? Let's start with you, Nick. Then what do you think?
Well, I guess, just with our kind of process of what we have been up to so far, my producer and I, we made a decision early on that we're kind of hooked up with the University of Kent and their facilities in Chatham, historic dockyard. And we decided we wanted really to get involved with the community in our from point one in what we were working on, and reached out to a great CCP, whatever, a bunch called
A person.
They're Creative People and Places organisation, called Ideas Test, who are fantastic in Chatham, who were able to form a relationship between us and guys who actually live in Chatham, and we've involved them from point one in the creation of a piece, and we'll look at every stage to open that up for whether I could spot here in the audience Karen Visser, who I Karen, nice to meet you.
Hi, Karen.
Who I had a fantastic chat with last week about this very subject of how to include everyone from point one. And they said, really, to me, coming from a rather, I'd say, stagnant industry of film and television, it's the most kind of exciting thing about this, what feels like an emergent art form. And that was very much the kind of feeling I got from being up in Bradford at the big thing, that there was a lot of people there who were really excited by what was going on and what could happen next.
So you've been including your audience actually in your kind of development of your ideas. What about you, Meera?
Yeah, I think they've always been at like the forefront of like my mind in like all of my work. Like my project Immig-rant is an exploration of the rhetoric around immigrants and refugees from like a lived experience as well in live performance. So I've always championed like underrepresented stories. But then I also had considerations about like actually accessing like these audiences. Because I come from like Corby, anyone knows what that is? It's a small town, and a lot of like these technologies, you have to go to like cities, so there's also like a financial barrier, but also like you put all this effort into like these stories and talking about like all these lived experiences, and you want them to be able to see it. So I think that's why I explored VR, because you can move these like technologies around. I've worked a lot with the theatre that I work at, and we're in the process of like taking some of the VR headsets like care homes. So you can bring in experienced audiences. Think about like how can you reach those audiences that would probably be interested in your work, but they don't have access. There's not considerations from the get-go.
Yeah, and for us, it's like audience is also at the core of where we think about. I always want to make work for as inclusive as possible. So that's the key thing. So there's no language barrier, because language can be a barrier. There is communications, like speech communications. So we all are learning a new language, and there's the sound and the visual is connected. So kind of like you can, one element can have a good experience already. So that's and then like we try to tour as well. So in like and really kind of like spend time and kind of like some resource to get how to kind of like reach to as many audiences as possible.
Yeah, and one thing we try to do, we've done in all of our work is have an online element. So that also makes it more accessible to people who can't, for whatever reason, come to a venue, or maybe are even in another part of the world. And it opens up this huge potential audience to the shows. But we're still exploring that side of things.
And what have you learned about your audience as part of this process, do you think?
We've not really
I mean, we haven't learned yet for this project.
Or what would you like to know about your audience?
Yeah, we are going to do like we have several different deadlines. Like this month, the deadline is like we're going to do some invited kind of sharing for the initial in-person audio visual experience, and then to learn about how people get along with that. But in the end of December, we will do a series of user tests. So we will promote it to get the tester, because it's very, very important. User test is at the core of the project when you are doing any online gaming or anything. So it's just the prototype user test. Yeah, and I imagine if when we are doing the whole project next year, you'll have several different steps of user tests as well.
Yeah.
You need to learn.
Like especially with gaming, I think, I'm a gamer, so I take it for granted that you can control things, but then when we did our first project and I let my parents try and play it, they didn't have a clue what they were doing. So like testing is very important.
Parents, the ultimate audience, I think. Yeah, fantastic. And what about you, Meera? What have you learned about your audience? Or what would you like to know?
I've definitely learned that they're just still so in awe of it all and like the possibilities. It's almost like no matter the age, like you're just bringing them back to like their childhood self. From like the work I've seen, or like when I go to see exhibition, and like you see the impact is the same across all generations, all race. Like everyone can have that shared space, and I think it is very like it does unify a lot of people. And I think everyone just is engaged in the same spectacle. And I think like when you put that consideration in terms of like access, again, I think it's also just people are more willing to like participate. They feel like they're seen, they engage with it more, they want to know more about it.
Fantastic. So, Nick, you had them there. They were.
I have nothing to add to that. I mean, literally, our audience so far has been the teenage boys of Chatham that we've been working with. And what's interesting is, I don't know. I mean, they're definitely intrigued as to what we're up to. It seems like fun to them what we're up to. You know, I'm working with an old friend who's a well-established, brilliant independent theatre producer, and he's aware of the fact that even though he's spent his life in it, his sons who are in their early 20s, they don't know this is a theatre, they don't go and see kind of live performance stuff. And so what we're desperately trying to work out is how to make the prospect of that exciting and how to take it to people. So very much like I think An-Ting and Ian are doing, working on, even though we're at a very early stage, working the idea of an ambisonic rig that is extremely movable, tourable, that you can take to people, you can take into spaces that don't necessarily usually host entertainment, you know, site-specific or whatever. And I think that's going to be a lot to do with what's going to happen.
Thank you. So I want you now to think about your project journeys. You two are on a 6-month project journey in Explore, and Experiment is 9 months of experimenting. And like you say, you've got some things coming up at the end of the year, which will all be very exciting. Thinking back to your original ideas, did everything go according to plan? What was surprising or unexpected, and what were some of the challenges you faced? That's a lot of questions, but you know, take any of those.
I'm trying to think back what we put in our application.
It had a different name at the start.
Exactly.
It's actually at the moment it's called the
Next Sound Foundation. Well, I mean, from what I remember, all we were asking to do at the outset was there was Nick and I, 2 others who at this stage aren't necessarily involved, but literally to spend some time with D&B Soundscape. In D&B Soundscape, Soundscape is made by D&B Audio. Technic is one of the ambisonic systems that is widely used. And so, well, our thing was like, we really want to basically just go and spend a little bit of time in Stroud with them just to kind of see how it works. And what we found is once we were able to say, oh, look, we've got a stamp of approval from Immersive Arts, people will do a lot for you for free. D&B Audio Technic just said, look, we love the sound of your project. You just let us know what you want. We'll see what we can do. And so they invited us to they have a wonderful kind of demonstration suite at the Science Museum. And they just got us in there, showed us how everything works, and said we have a studio upstairs. And when you want to come in and play, you come in and play. And I think that was something that we certainly didn't expect, was that people are out there, people with the technology are out there interested in creative people and what creative people would like to do with that technology.
Thank you. And Meera, what about you? Your project journey?
Oh God, my budget went here, there, and everywhere. But same as you, Nick. For instance, a lot of things I budgeted for in terms of like, for instance, renting equipment, so like renting a VR headset. But then when I started the project and started talking to people like the theatre that I work at, they recommended NBD and doing mentorship with. They ended up having their own headsets that they gave to me like in kind. I didn't have to pay for it, so that I could reallocate money elsewhere. And a lot of like things that I signed up for, like courses, when I got the funding, they were either full, they were cancelled, they'd been rescheduled. So I was like, what am I doing now? But yeah, like Michelle and everyone was like very flexible, like it's your budget, you can reallocate, like think about, I think what helped me was like knowing what my goals were and what I wanted to do like at my course. So even though I couldn't do a course with one company, I wanted to find something similar with other ones who were in the same like field.
We basically do work in a month by month plan instead of like the overall plan, because just so many things will go differently. So the concept I think is pretty similar from the beginning, kind of by exploring underwater sound. But in terms of the process, it's constantly moving and changing. I mean, Ian's life is basically trying to talk about this. But I mean, for some producing parties, for example, just like we thought we can get this one partner, but then this one partner just like, oh, we can't. But then just, oh my God, we can't do it anymore. But then just like suddenly just like figure out, oh, there's another like a better option even. So it just, when one door is closed and sometimes the other door is open. So I think it's very important to just like to keep being flexible and don't feel like just to be despair or something kind of when things are not working, because it's just so normal when things are not working.
It's all R&D.
Yeah, so R&D is basically, it's me banging my head against the wall for 3 months and eventually finding things that work. And yeah, don't be afraid to be really ambitious at the start, but then drop things as they don't work until you whittle it down to something like the core of what we were trying to do. And yeah, I mean, as was touched on before, like having the immersive arts name behind you opens a lot of doors. And there's a lot of investment in infrastructure, and there's a lot of like places that are crying out for like content creators, and they will open the doors and give you access to these things.
You've all touched on something quite important. Was the basic driving thing behind the thing that you wanted to do in your creative practice was the most important thing, but the way you get there and what happens and what unfolds is very iterative. It's very step by step. You're an experiment, so we expected things to go wrong right from the beginning. We kind of set that's what that strand is for, because making mistakes, having happy accidents is all part of the creative process. So have you got any aha moments or any of those moments you'd like to share with this lovely audience? Or even just a funny one.
I mean, to be honest, that was the kind of aha moment, was realizing that people were going to go, this sounds great, how can we help?
Yeah.
I'm so unused to that within the industry that I've been worked in a lot. That was absolutely it.
Great. And Meera, what about you? You've been learning software and experimenting with all sorts.
God damn, it's a lot. It's so worth it when it actually like works and the block goes in as an error code. I feel so fulfilled.
About any aha moments or any funny moments you'd like to share with?
Probably just coming the other side of it and being like it is actually like getting along, and just the satisfaction of like when it's starting to like take shape, and knowing that like these guys say, like be ambitious, and when you start to see it come about, like the people at MVD were like, Meera, you can just buy the assets, you don't have to build every little detail. I was like, what? So actually build a bank in VR, you can just buy it on Unity stores, and you can use some of the funding for that. So it's been great, and it's like, okay, you don't have to do it all yourself, but you can still be ambitious and create what you want to create. And maybe that's about tapping into like the networks and making new connections, and like you guys said, just talk to people like universities, local theatres, local groups that you see that are doing stuff that you want to do. And just write to them. A lot of people want to collaborate. So
yeah.
thank you.
I think like when you're doing immersive stuff, the aha moment is often like you're doing it on your laptop with like stereo headphones, and then when you either put it in VR or you put it on the screens and you have like animatronics or something, and then suddenly it's like, wow, this is like really real. Yeah, so that's really exciting.
And talking a bit more physical experience, like we explore about underwater sound, but at the beginning we read about there's underwater sound, but we don't even believe or actually know what is underwater sound. So then we try to record it, and and we broke a lot of things because we didn't know. I mean, we should know. Seawater is quite scary, but until it actually break our equipment, then we really learn about it. So it was a hard process. But then, no, it's just noisy. Then underwater, just the fish and coral, they're just constantly talking. Like it's really a very, very rewarding process. Like finally we now recognize their sound, voice, and communications. It's amazing. Yeah.
When this is all over, go and check out their page on the project section of our website, because there's a video of them doing just that. It's great. So it's called Lost Communications Underwater, if you were searching for it. So where are we? So what are your biggest takeaways from your Explore project, Meera?
The biggest takeaway. Yeah, I think going back to just like tapping into those networks, and then you don't have to do it all yourself. Because I don't have a team, so I'll just do kind of it all myself, and it became very overwhelming very quick. And then when I actually leaned on people, like people would recommend people, they'd have this, they'd have equipment that kind of free, they could recommend this company. So I think just leaning into like networks, allocate some budget for networking, because even though it can be a bit daunting putting yourself out there, it's propelled my projects in directions that I didn't think were possible.
And what's next for you, do you think?
I think collaborating with a lot of the artists and companies that I've met throughout the project, from like the big thing, but also like with like MBD, a lot of people are just excited, I think, to have more people in the space and like bringing out like your interests and your stories. So yeah, Unity is a bit longer than I thought, but we're getting there. So keep an eye on my page. I invite you all free comp tickets.
Great, yeah, we'll be there. An-Ting and Ian, what about you? Biggest takeaways and what's next?
The takeaway now is I mean for me the spatial sound is I only started exploring this year and I was very suspicious about this because on the surface there's a lot of you just feel all the big brands they just want you to spend more money on buying new equipment or things, just paying more in order for musicians or for venues or for audience, paying more in order to kind of just earn more money. That's before my research. But after I started working on that and really listened to it, I just really think that's making a huge difference of the listening experience. And actually, our technology like stereo is a downgrade of the real sound.
When I just talk in this way, it's immersive sound.
It's so that's not you know where I'm talking from, but when I talk in this way, you hear from the speakers. So it's actually a downgrade of the listening experience. And then the immersive or spatial sounds is actually just slightly pushing our technology to help us to go back to kind of what is the natural state of us listening to the sound. So I'm just really kind of feeling it works, but just how to make it more artist driven and also the audience thinking for the audience instead of it just driven by the industry, by the expensive speaker system. I think that's a key thing. It's the artists and kind of we can and together with the audience to look at.
I'm not sure what the takeaway is yet because we're still kind of in the midst of it. But
So far, then.
We've obviously been learning a lot, and I think it's quite exciting how close we're getting to really understand how the really big shows put things on, and see a route forward to kind of doing that. It's not that unattainable. Yeah, and also just I think before we really got immersed in immersive arts, I didn't think that the facilities were there, but there are actually quite a lot of facilities out there in the country. But there seems to be a lack of network or kind of understanding of there needs to be a list of venues or something.
Yeah. And Nick, what about you?
I completely agree with the other guys that I'm coming into this, I knew that there was a thing called surround sound. You had it on your telly and football sounded good on it, and you can make things explode behind you. But then we were having initial conversations where people were explaining the difference between, to me, for example, Dolby Atmos or Dolby 5.1 or whatever, systems which are really kind of presuming that you are watching something in a kind of proscenium arch situation, that you're looking at that, and so the sound is designed around you. That's one thing. The kind of stuff that Soundscape does, D&B audio technique, which is kind of what Ian and An-Ting are talking about, which is genuine surround sound, where, Soundscape is extraordinary. It's object-based audio, so you can place sounds absolutely precisely in the ether around you. And I think you guys would agree, when you actually, certainly when we went to ITEC, D&B's demonstration studio, when they played this stuff there, they played this a K Tempest song, but it had just been remixed in soundscape. And the vividness of that sound stays with me right now. It's almost like a different sense, isn't it? I mean, it's utter precision, and you could feel your senses and your brain coming alive to it, and getting more interested in it. And I think that's certainly what I've taken away from it. Is just like, yeah, that's the thing to do. Let's find out how to do it.
So it's not like you're just going to stop.
Slippery slope now.
You're in. Now you're in. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So that's really exciting to hear. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm going to ask you guys one more question at the end. But first of all, would any of you like to ask a question? If I give one of these mics down to Chloe, who's got a question? Yeah, hand up. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to ask a really practical question about budget considerations. Sorry, that's boring.
No.
But, when you're considering these technologies that maybe you haven't used before and you don't know how they're going to work, how do you consider your budget for your time, for the researcher's time, for, basically all of it?
Cool for me. To be honest, I've just had a look. I used a lot of like speaking to any contacts I knew, but a little bit of like just research on like Google, or I guess you can use like AI to see like what kind of equipment you might need. So then I kind of got like rough pricing from that. I guess always like round up. I like budget my own time at like equity, like minimum, like whatever I was comfortable with. But I was kind of happy to give myself like half day rates that I could pay myself for like longer and then spread it out that way. But I think a lot of people are quite transparent. Like if you've got time to like, if you know you want to get mentorship with anyone, or you're looking at any courses, just like emailing or ringing and just being quite like, I'm looking at doing this, like how much would you give? Or if there's any practitioners, just ask them what their day rate is. That's what I did to like be like roughly it would be like £300 for a day with this person.
We have put some day rates on the website as well. If you go to the resources section, I think somewhere in there in FAQs. And any other questions?
Thank you very much. Does anyone have I'm Brian Fudge, by the way, does anyone have a key takeaway for how you balance experimentation with engagement? Were you always driven by looking at what you could do, or were you looking at starting at sometimes with how people might respond and how you might reach that point?
Anyone that would like to?
Maybe like how we look at to start the project.
Yeah, at what point did or what creative ways did you take for inspiring a viewer? I know that as artists we inspire ourselves, but where tell me one pathway where you put that outcome first. I'm fascinated.
Yeah, I mean, so for us, the core is always like the exploration of the concept. That's the core of the thing. And then I feel to make arts is about how to make that part to inspire people. And technology is a really excellent way to to really really immerse people, being able to interact and to immerse people. And that's one thing I really recommend is in our practices, so just different stages of sharing. So from the very quite early on, kind of like a little sharing just with 4 speakers. So instead of making all of the D&B soundscape is great, but that's really expensive thing. I mean they can support in kind or something, but that's really top scale things. But even 4 speaks, I would say, make a huge difference already. So then when that starts, and then with the audience, that's a very simple place, and you can start to see how people respond to that, and start to see what works and what doesn't work, and then different stages of sharing, like make us understand what artists like just what inspire people. Do I answer your question? Sorry.
Very good. Take it up, thank you.
Anyone else over there?
Hi, so I'd like to ask an impossible question to answer, please. But you guys are obviously amazingly good at filling out application forms because the success rate, as you know, is just vanishingly small. So what can you just, you're clearly like the Mozart of applications. What's your magic, you know, do you just poems or, you know, that gave that magical extra touch? Apart from, you know, obviously they're all very good ideas, but lots of very good ideas didn't make it. So is there something you can share about, you know, how you bring the magic to the application form?
I think because of the background I have in the kind of film and telly stuff, you know, there's a whole culture around that of elevated pitches and not even starting writing a script until you can encapsulate everything in a sentence, all that kind of thing. So I'm kind of used to it, and I found filling the form out quite useful insofar as I think if you're doing that, if you are pitching your idea rather than just thinking, oh, I've got to fill this out, or I've got to put that in because I want that, whatever. I think if you really do see it as that as a pitch rather than a fund application, I think that's probably what we did, thinking back. And I think very smartly. Certainly, I looked at the experiment application, and you know, you've got to basically sum up your what your project is in 75 words. And very smartly, I think you guys have put in brackets, you may want to do this after you've done all of the rest of the form. And I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and just to maybe something that would help with that, we have a round one commentary on our website. That's in the resources section as well. And Ruth and I did a talk about what was successful and what was not successful in round one. But what I can say is that telling us clearly what difference it will make for your practice, how this funding meets your practice, rather than trying to squeeze your practice into the boxes. It's like the ones that came through clearly were the artists that was like, I really want to do this and I really want to do it now. So why now? What difference is it going to make to your practice, not just the project, but to you as an artist? What impact will it have? And, you know, if we gave you X amount of money, are you ready to go? Would you, like, some people quite vague and laid back about things, but people that were clear about what they didn't know how they were going to get there, but they did know what they wanted.
Answer also
Yeah.
this question.
Like, I mean, I can't say like Mozart of like applications, but just because I have to tell applications I failed. So like I believe like practice like make it perfect, and it applies to application as well. Like some project there will be like 1 week I applied for 3 things, maybe 1 got shortlisted and 2 got like rejected. So and then the more kind of, because we are thinking about this project we want to make it, so we have to find money in order to make it happen. And then just like finding which is a suitable like funding, and then get failed for so many times, and then we learn how to write applications. That's basically my strategy to share with you a bit about it.
Thank you.
Michelle, can I say something as well to that question?
Yeah.
So, yeah, from the sort of producer, we've been asked this question a lot. I've answered it today in the room as well, so I've answered it in the round now. Read the guidelines. The funding guidelines is the key document you need. We have everything you should need in there. Read the definition of immersive art. You need to tell us how your project aligns with that definition. You need to tell us why. Pitch is a good verb. Pitch your project how it meets that definition. People are asking, oh, does this fit? Does this fit? You have to convince us of that and tell us how your project meets the definition. In the guidelines, we have a section called about funding. We have tables for each strand. Literally, the criteria is what we score against. Your answers need to match that criteria. We can only score against that criteria if your answers give us the information we need to score against that. That is literally the best advice we can give. That is the only advice. That's the tactic. And some people just miss those. So, and then as I mentioned the commentary, if you haven't applied last year, don't make the same mistakes people made last year. Read that. We have it online. Why some people weren't eligible, why some scored better than others. Those are the key things. That's all the information that's out there. It's public. Those are the things that will help you to pitch your project in a way that matches our criteria.
And you can apply in text and you can write it all down. But if you prefer, you can voice note the answers, if you prefer to tell us rather than write it. And you can also just record yourself making, to video. You can choose how you apply. Like we're trying to lower the barriers as much as we can. So, and also have fun with it. I know it all sounds so serious, but it's also the joy of making this work, the passion that's behind these pieces comes through in the words that the way that people are describing what they're doing, I think. But like Chloe said, there are really clear bullet points. You can just check them and make sure that you've said something about them. Does that answer your question, your impossible question? Great, okay, we're doing well. Karen, by the way, is one of our artists. She's doing a project and that you can find that on our website too, if you search for her.
Thank you. My question is about accessibility, and I'll preface by saying that I have very limited central vision in the one eye in patches, and in this 6-month period it's deteriorated, and I'm heading in the trajectory of going blind. So I want to immerse myself more in other people's projects, but what I find is often there's an impenetrability because of sensory overload. So for instance, I'm really interested in sound and soundscapes and what you're describing with the underwater in particular, because a blind friend of mine is an underwater photographer and is doing a lot of work photographing the giant sea bass off the island of Catalina. But often the sound, is there a way in your project that you're considering how to, I have 2 questions. One is that you can sometimes switch it off or filter it, the person, the participator. And then my second question is if, in terms of gaming, where somebody might like to engage or understand a project, is it possible to ensure that the movement or the lighting isn't so fast so that somebody might want to, you can then slow it down so that you can engage? Because I'm filtering out so much based on what's happening to my site. So one of the really reassuring things about my project was I came to terms with that. I accepted that I have to piece things together in a slow and fairly detailed fashion. And I was true to myself on this project. And that for me was probably the biggest outcome, was I could stand tall and say, I did this to the best as I could in the way that I can. But I would so like to be part of other people's and to understand. So is there a way that you could switch off or modulate for people with sensory impairment in your projects?
That's a really good question and reminder in a way. So I think that's a very important part in the audience test process, because that's our aim to have when I say we want our project to be inclusive, and then that means we need to have some commitment, which is we should get people as a part of the project to actually see whether that speak to those people. So at this moment we think that can connect in terms of the sound and the visual can come. It doesn't have to be both. It can be one side and it's still meaningful. So but the real situation we need to do through audience tests. And we will be calling out audience tests process. So that's and then we will also work on reaching to make sure it's all the different kind of like a representation to different types of audience. So like, I mean, I would like to keep your contact or something like to, and anybody else they kind of like to invite doing like our bonds test process. That's very important.
Yeah, I think we could definitely do with some advice and help about this. We have like the main performance version. I'm talking about the kind of at-home game version that we're going to make, but we have talked about doing a relaxed version as well, where you're, because the really fascinating thing that we've discovered recording and everything is just how noisy it is underwater, and not a lot of people know about the sounds underwater, because usually when you see a video of an underwater scene, they have some like relaxing music over the top of it or something, and you don't really hear what it's like. So we want to make a version where you're just kind of like swimming around, exploring the world, and hearing the coral and the fish and things like that.